love, love, Lord, till I hear the breath of thy Spirit flowing in me.
Hello and welcome to Spirit of Life. Today our guest is Miriam Markis, who works for the Catholic Charismatic Renewal as the office manager and one of the coordinators. And we'll also be discussing Our Lady Queen of Peace's message from November the 25th, 2020. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Mirella.
And before we start with Our Lady's message, could we talk a little bit about, let us know a bit about what you do at the Catholic Charismatic Renewal?
Okay, as you mentioned earlier, I'm the office manager there, and I have been since virtually I was employed to do that since June 2007, so still doing that work. And that entails all the office works that generally a lot of officers do anyway, you know, all the paperwork and whatever. We have volunteers there that come in on various days, so I coordinate their work. They help us with the everyday running of the day-to-day affairs.
And do you do a lot of healing on people as part of the job?
That's a separate issue. That's part of our healing ministry. So the office part is running the everyday business type of thing that it entails. We have to conform to government regulations, and we're a not-for-profit organisation under the Catholic Church. But so as that, we have to conform to a lot of standards.
And maybe we'll talk as we go on with the show. I'll start by reading Mary's message, and then we'll you just interject as we go.
Okay.
Our Lady said on the 25th of November 2020, "Dear children, this is a time of love, warmth, prayer and joy. Pray, little children, for little Jesus to be born in your hearts. Open your hearts to Jesus, who gives himself to each of you. God sent me to be joy and hope in this time. And I am saying to you, without little Jesus, you do not have the tenderness or the feeling of heaven which is hidden in the newborn. Therefore, little children, work on yourselves. By reading the sacred scripture, you will discover Jesus, birth and joy, as in the first days which Medjugorje gave to mankind. History will be truth, which also today is being repeated in you and around you. Work on and build peace through the sacrament of confession. Reconcile with God, little children, and you will see miracles around you. Thank you for having responded to my call." So I'll just start with the first sentence Our Lady said. She said, "Dear children, this is a time of love, warmth, prayer and joy." And I think that's what we need to focus on: prayer, joy, warmth, love with each other, with everyone, with our families.
I think that particularly during this most difficult year, as you would and I have experienced, and so many others, not just here locally but worldwide, have discovered. But one of the things I've become aware of is even through the different media where people are talking about reconnecting with families. And in the reconnection with families, there seems to be a lot more love and warmth going on. And that's displayed, between themselves. People perhaps have not been as close to each other as they have been this year. That this rediscovering, even between parents and their children. As you know, in this day and age, so many mothers particularly have to work. It's just the environment, and because of the economic situation, a lot of mothers are forced to work. And I know that, having children at home, homeschooling, and all of that has helped parents reconnect with their children. I know my own grandson was absolutely delighted with homeschooling because he could be with his parents.
Beautiful.
So I'm sure that that's true, particularly with the little ones.
Yeah.
You know, when they spend time with their parents, they get that nurture, that love, that warmth, and I think that's so important.
Yeah.
And then we speak of unspeakable joy. That's an odd thing for Our Lady to say, because you know, joy is something that transcends time and place and our emotions and our situations. And I think she's speaking about that joy coming into us if we only allow ourselves to be focused on heaven. Our focus on heaven and the things of heaven bring us joy.
Yeah.
And it can transcend all our
Heaven on
worries
earth.
and cares.
Yeah. As Our Father says, on earth as it is in heaven.
That's right, yes. Yeah.
And then Our Lady said, pray, little children, for little Jesus to be born in your hearts. So we need to also be conscious that you know, even if we don't know the Bible back to front or inside out, we know that Jesus lives in our hearts. Jesus lives in our neighbours' hearts.
Yes.
And sometimes that's all we need to be happy and joyful and peaceful, just to
Absolutely.
be aware of that.
That reconnection,
Yeah.
you know, and so many people that are lonely out there. But people have a way in times of adversity. Like I saw neighbours taking down part of their fence and putting up a perspex fence and being able to sit there and talk to neighbours one-on-one, you know, that perhaps don't have families,
Yeah.
especially during that time when we couldn't go anywhere at all. So that, you know, speaks of the human desire to be connected.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you know, that human desire to be connected with God. Some realise it, some come to realise it slowly, or in old age, and some, you know, perhaps only discover it through connections in the human thing. But that is supposed to be a step-by-step process where we come to know that we're connected to God, and that brings us joy, as nothing else on earth does.
It makes a miracle itself just to know God is in each one of us.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We have to go to a break now. You're watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly. Hello and welcome back to Spirit of Life. We're here with Miriam Markis from the Catholic Charismatic Renewal. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Mirella.
And we're discussing Our Lady Queen of Peace's message from the 25th of November 2020. Our Lady also said, open your hearts to Jesus, who gives himself to each of you. God sent me to be joy and hope in this time, and I'm saying to you, without little Jesus, you do not have the tenderness or the feeling of heaven, which is hidden in the newborn. So it's so beautiful because she's asking us to concentrate on Our Lady bringing Jesus to us. And we need to feel the presence of Jesus with us, like the little baby Jesus. Everyone sees a little baby, they love a little baby. It's someone so beautiful to see a baby. And this baby's Jesus, so something very sacred.
That's right, and often we tend to think of Jesus just as the grown man. And I remember in my one of my articles for the Good News, I do an editorial as the office manager of Catholic Charismatic Renewal, and in the November issue of 2020, I wrote about seeking Our Lady's help, how to allow Jesus to be born in our lives. And yes, if we do it on our own, we may succeed. Of course we may. But, asking Our Lady, who bore him for 9 months in her womb, and was able to speak to him daily in the womb and bless him and just await joyfully his birth. And that's an aspect of perhaps Christmas that we don't actually always see, is the focus is always on Jesus, the coming of Jesus, but allowing Our Lady to help us. And even in these days, it doesn't matter what time of our lives, if we can ask Jesus to send us his mother and ask Mother Mary to help us. We certainly need her help, you know, so many times. And she doesn't disappoint, does she?
No.
She brings us that Jesus. She's more than happy to reveal Jesus to us, and particularly at any Christmas time when she comes to us with the message of Medjugorje, and that was probably given looking forward to the Advent period of Christmas. And you know, I know myself asking her, please bring baby Jesus to me. And what does that mean? It means surrendering and accepting that he's this little child, this helpless little child who comes just so full of love. And when someone so full of love comes to you, the heart just melts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it wants to give that love back.
Yeah.
And so to pour that love back on this baby Jesus. But, you know, asking him with all our hearts really to, you know, to come again into our hearts. Yeah.
My mum used to always say with like little babies, when they're looking up and smiling, they're just looking. They're not looking at anyone in particular. They're just smiling. She used to say they're smiling at the angels because they can still see the angels.
That's right. I've heard stories where people have said, you know, they've overheard one of their older children looking at a newborn baby and you know, discussing angels and things, and the parents have been just aghast and thinking, oh, wow. And I know myself, I've seen, you know, children looking up or babies looking up.
Yeah.
And you think, what are they looking at? They're so intent.
Yeah.
And I think it's because their spirits are open. They're untainted by the sin and the things of this world, our preoccupations as adults and older children even.
Yeah.
So they're more in tune with the spirit world.
Yeah.
And they can see, I believe, you know, it hasn't been proved, I suppose, I don't know, maybe it has, but I believe that they can see in the spirit, and they may even be seeing, you know, baby Jesus.
Yeah.
Playing with baby Jesus, and you know, the arms and the legs are a little going, and so they could be communing with him in that baby talk.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a beautiful image.
Yeah.
And then Our Lady went on to say, where did I get up to? Open your hearts to joy, to Jesus who gives himself to each of you. God sent me to be joy and hope in this time, and I'm saying to you, without little Jesus, you do not have the tenderness or the feeling of heaven which is hidden in the newborn. Therefore, little children, work on yourselves. By reading the sacred scripture, you will discover Jesus' birth and joy, as in the first days of which Medjugorje gave to mankind. So there's two things there. It was two sentences really. Our Lady said, work on yourselves. Like, it's not always, we'll just start with that one, because it's not always outside us. Like sometimes people like to blame other people for this and that. But if we work on our own personal relationship with Jesus, it's the best way to be. It really is the best way for us to grow in our spirit and in happiness, I think.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I know that, you know, if you're holding on to resentment and anger and things like that, and you're focusing on what other people are doing to you, you lose that joy.
Yeah.
You lose your peace. But we need to focus on ourselves. We need to see that within our hearts there's always, you know, some bit of blackness there, or darkness, if you want to call it that. And it's that very darkness that needs to be opened up to the light. Because Jesus says, I'm the light of the world. And he comes to dispel the darkness. And that darkness is usually the negative things in our lives. And if we surrender those to Jesus, well, then he can come in and transform us. We all need to be transformed.
I
we
think
all
even
need
the
to
world,
change.
the world
Yes.
is going from dark to light.
Yes.
God wins. These are the
Yes.
things that are happening. That's what we're at this time of, you know, our lives.
Yes.
We're all changing from dark to light, I think.
Yes.
Everything is changing.
Yes.
And it's God has the whole world in his hands. We always have to remember that.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
he does. And he's in every situation. I mean, sometimes I think to myself, God, you're funny. You know, if I have a problem or something and you think, oh, gosh, how can I work this out and whatever, and then suddenly it seems to work out, and it works out in an incredible way, which you know in your own mind that you would never have thought of. You know,
Beautiful. Absolutely.
and you think, well, that's God.
Exactly.
That must be God. And, you know,
Perfect.
he's so funny the way he works things out. And I mean, sometimes hilariously, and sometimes, you know, in a unusual way.
We have to go to a break now. You're watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly. Hello and welcome back to Spirit of Life. We're with Miriam Markis from Catholic Charismatic Renewal, and we're discussing Our Lady Queen of Peace's message from the 25th of November 2020. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you again, Mirella.
And before we were talking as reading Our Lady's message, and she was also talking about reading sacred scripture. By reading sacred scripture, you'll discover Jesus' birth and joy as in the first days which Medjugorje gave to mankind. It's kind of beautiful also how she says mankind, because we are meant to be kind. Man and womankind, you know, we're all meant to be kind.
But also mankind. You notice he doesn't say just us Christians. He came for everyone.
Everybody.
And he's trying to reconcile all mankind.
Yes, yes.
And Our Lady is telling us that quite clearly, you know, trying to reconcile all of mankind.
Yeah. And actually everybody, doesn't even matter who they are, everyone feels happier when they're kinder to each other, don't they?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You know, if you extend yourself a little bit more, you're always happier.
Yeah.
And if you know, in the habit of giving things away or giving things to people that are less fortunate than ourselves, you know, we're kinder and we're happier.
Yeah, and also before the break we were talking about you have experiences where you feel like God's joking or making you laugh. I just thought it reminded me of a message Miriana said, one of the visionaries from Medjugorje. She said in one of the talks, she said, we have to joke because if you want to be a witness of God's love, you have to joke and smile. You have to see on your face the smile and joy of God's love.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, Pope Francis has said that right from the beginning of his pontificate, and in fact he probably preached it back in Argentina, if the truth be known. But he said right from the beginning, don't wear a sourpuss face, because who would want to be a Christian if they see you with a sourpuss face? You know, be joyful. We have something to rejoice about. We have God, our Father, who has given us his only Son, Jesus, and this is something to rejoice about. We should be happy. We should be, inviting people to come and share our joy and come to share the joy of heaven, really.
And then Our Lady said, history will be truth, which also today is being repeated in you and around you. Work on and build peace through the sacrament of confession. Reconcile with God, little children, and you will see miracles around you. Thank you for having responded to my call. So that's a beautiful line about seeing miracles around us. If we reconcile with Jesus, with God, if we reconcile with God, little children, you will see miracles around you. Have you had experiences where you felt that has happened in your life?
Oh, I did. I remember the very first time I received prayer at the church that I used to attend, or became my parish at East Brunswick at the time. And I received prayer for the first time. And I remember what we call falling in the Spirit. Yeah. And I was laying there and I had a vision of all these people walking on the sand. And I thought to myself, well, who are all these people? And then I realised that they were all people in my life that I had known from earliest, memory. And different ages, men, women, children, all sorts of people, and as well as family members, everyone that I'd encountered. And I remember thinking suddenly, oh, these are all people that have hurt me.
Hurt you or hurt?
Hurt me.
Like physically hurt or emotionally?
Well, in some cases, yes, but
hurt.
often
I wasn't
just
sure if
a
you said
word.
heard or hurt. Hurt.
Yeah, hurt. Unkind words, actions,
absolutely,
attitudes, all sorts of situations. And I remember thinking, oh gosh, and I heard the words quite clearly within myself, not sort of audibly, but within myself I heard quite clearly, forgive them. And I thought, no, I'm not forgiving them. They've hurt me. And I realised after quite a long period of time that I was laying there that the more stubborn I became, the more I couldn't get up, and I wanted to get up and I wanted to be free because I felt, a bit frightened by what was happening. And then I realised it was like a ray of light came into my mind, so to speak, to say, well, I understood that if I didn't forgive, I wouldn't be able to get up. And so I chose to forgive.
Yeah.
I chose to forgive in that moment, and very, slowly managed to get up, and my life proceeded from that point onwards. But it changed me forever. I realised that I was set free.
Yeah.
That I had actually been carrying all these chains and all these hurts and things, baggage upon my shoulders that, just felt like I was carrying the world on my shoulders. The image of the man.
It's interesting. It's such an interesting comment because, like, people do that, don't they? They hold a lot of resentment and anger towards certain people that have hurt them in their lives. It doesn't help them. Doesn't heal the relationships. It doesn't do anything of any value. But on the other hand, you understand why some people do that. It's kind of maybe a bit of a self-righteous thing, or that wasn't right, that wasn't correct. So we do need to still know what's right and what's wrong, but we also need to be free of whatever's been done to us, because God's the judge in the end.
Yeah.
He'll judge everybody according to what they've done on earth.
That's right. But one of the reasons that I find people give, and including myself, was holding on to this unforgiveness, was the fact that somehow we believe wrongly, quite wrongly actually, that if we forgive, it's somehow condoning their behaviour. That it's sort of saying, oh, well, they did the right thing.
Yes,
and
what you're saying.
and so that's why we want to hold on to that unforgiveness. But in actual fact, it actually frees us. We're not condoning their behaviour, and in actual fact, we then remember that we too have been perpetrators of
we
of
end up
things.
with wings, I think, when we forgive.
we've been doing the very same things that we blame others about.
Thank you so much for coming on the program. Would you like to come again next week?
Absolutely.
Lovely. You've been watching Spirit of Life. I hope you enjoyed the program. Our guest was Miriam Markis, and may God bless each one of you.
Bring it to birth and blow where you will. Blow, blow, blow till I be but breath of the Spirit blowing